Reaperman here with Moon Patrol on Atari 800. This is one of the very first video games I ever played, and to this day it's one of my favorites on the platform. Now let's give it a go here. Now in Moon Patrol, you're this little buggy driving across this fairly smoothly scrolling landscape, except there's all these holes and boulders and enemies both above and eventually in front of you that you have to take out or jump over. And you're trying to get all the way through all of these alphabetical checkpoints here from A to Z pretty much as quickly as you can, because at every major checkpoint, that's at the letters you see across the top of the screen, E, J, O, T, and Z, the game actually stops and gives you kind of a score tally, well really a time tally of how quickly you've completed that section of levels. And awards bonus points, of course, so this game's got a little bit more going on for it than just the basic high score. It's actually got kind of these little time challenge high scores as well. By the way, if anybody's looking for a high score to chase, I've actually put mine down in the lower corner there, and that is the best score that I achieved out of my kind of get through the easy losses practice for this video. So as you can see, I made it in 58 seconds. That happens to be a tie for my old top record, and I get bonus points accordingly. Now, in addition to the beautiful scrolling landscape being kind of unique to this game, and the high score system and time trial system, this game also has a little bit of a continue system, which I'd never played any game previous to this that has had that. And there may have been, I just never played them. And this is probably one of the first big games to have that kind of a feature. Whoop. Ooh, the rocks are starting to double up on me, and that is a bit of a challenge. So when the rocks double up, you can either slow down and shoot them both, or you can shoot one and jump the other, or you can just, if you're feeling really spry, you can just jump them both. The object being not to slow down too terribly much. Ooh, and you gotta watch out for these little flashing or silver enemies, however you want to look at it. Because their bombs, if they hit in front of you, they make holes. And then you have to jump those holes, and that's kind of obnoxious. Ooh, level's getting a little spicy. Now this is my copy of Moon Patrol here. Now this is a game I did pick up as an adult. As a child I never had this game, and I have a few theories as to why. Now, I believe, if I recall, this game was a bit of an Atari 5200 exclusive for a while, as in Atari 800 and 5200 are pretty much the same system. Ooh, it's mines. But if I recall, this game was out on 5200 first and kind of stayed there. And as a kid, this game only came out on cartridge, and I had a floppy disk version. And I believe my floppy disk version was actually the 5200 version. And there were actually two versions of it floating around. They had different music. One had music like this one, and the other one had kind of its own thing going on. And actually I recorded this entire video with the bad music one, and this is actually me having to re-record it. Just because that music is kind of irritating. But since I owned both versions as a kid, nothing seemed amiss to me. In fact, I didn't even notice that there were two versions until I started shooting this video here. You know, because I was trying to hum along to the tune, and just impossible to do so. So, for all the kids in the room, you may wonder how somebody in the 1980s gets hold of pirate games. And there's basically two ways to do it. And one of my kind of favorite early computer memories is going to a computer users group that Pa was a member of. And in these groups, basically these were piracy rings, if you will. And what people would do is they would buy, oh geez, they would buy these big floppy disk briefcases that would hold just hundreds of disks, and everybody knew what they were for. They were for these things. Oh, here's the part of the game that reminds me of Jungle Hunt here, the kind of coconut or lava level, I can't remember which. Much easier with a gun, by the way. So anyway, there I was as a kid going to this users group meeting, and Pa handed me this kind of box of blank discs, you know, one of those little 10 disc boxes. And I was walking around from table to all of these guys with open briefcases, and what I would do is I'd talk to them, and I'd swap one of my blank discs for one of their not blank discs, and then they would take my disc and fill it up with a different game for next time. And that's how I believe I got both of my copies of Moon Patrol. So then how does the users group community get a hold of it? Well, that's kind of where BBSs came in. Now, everybody knew a handful of BBS numbers, and when you connected to a BBS, you'd find more BBS numbers, and you just kind of call around to all these BBSs with your modem. Like you take the phone, you dial it, and you put the handset down in it. They called it an acoustic coupler, and you would connect to these BBSs, and you could download programs so that you could, get a new game, basically. Because Ataris were basically game machines first, even though they were computers. Everybody treated them kind of as a game machine. Pretty sure I shot there, but whatever, game. Whatever. So I do notice that on this game sometimes, and I'll have to look at the replay to see if this is one of those cases, but sometimes I press the button, I hear myself shoot, but I don't see myself shoot. And that's a little bit on the frustrating side, to be honest. Ooh, so here's the tanks. And the tanks you handle kind of like double boulders. You have to shoot the bullet. I mean, have to. But then you can jump the tank. And it's actually probably faster to jump the tank. Not that fast matters after I've died so many times, because I'm getting a terrible score. And we're back to the jungle hunt level here. So anyway, I was talking about BBSs, and I believe there's still some BBSs around for the Ataris. Ooh, that was one of those have to lose, can't dodge fast enough scenarios. But the BBSs these days for Ataris aren't dial-in, they're like a Telnet BBS. At least that's what I expect. Maybe there's a few dial-in ones around. Oh, we are coming up on the end of the first loop here. And the cockpit load is quite high. My. Okay, and that is the end of the beginner loop. Now we're going to this, challenging or champion course or whatever it is. Now I cannot complete this champion course, so, wipe that out of your mind now. From what I understand, though, you go through from A to Z on the beginner course, and then the harder course actually loops infinitely. And that's how you get your high scores that way. Now there's two new baddies for this particular loop. There's a little rocket that comes up behind you, and then there's these plants that live in the ground and kind of stick up and kind of ruin your day. And I believe we're up to the rocket. Now the rocket's worth a lot of points if you can shoot him. Whew, and we got him there. Honestly, I miss him more than I get him. I believe he's worth 500 points, which in this game is actually quite a lot. Ooh. Have to shoot that one. We're actually going to shoot all of them. Because in this game, you always have the option to just go slow. So I may have already mentioned it, but I'm playing this on a Mister, so of course that means that I can bind the up key to a jump button, just like the arcade has, and that's a really nice feature. I actually designed a whole controller adapter for my NT Mini just to do that kind of functionality, and on this it's just like an emulator. You just assign a button. Just easy. However, the Mister is just a little bit overwhelming, and I don't yet think that I can do a video on the Mister itself. There's just too much to it. First impressions, though, I've got to say that not all of the cores feel fully baked, in that some of the cores it is not nearly as hard to find fault with as it is on, say, a Kevtris system. Oh, I think we are coming up on the first plant environment here. We'll see if I can shoot these plants. I'm usually terrible at that. Pretty sure there's plants. Yep, plants are here. Got one. I don't actually know the full rules on how you can blow up plants. I think it's where my little bullets explode is where I have to hit them. I'm actually doing fairly well. As I say that, I'm not actually doing fairly well anymore. But I will demo, if you will, the continue functionality. Now, I actually really like Moon Patrol in general, and on Mister, I've got an awful lot of options for playing Moon Patrol, including the arcade version. But I actually prefer this particular Atari version. And I say this particular Atari version because there's actually like a hacked version that came out much later called Moon Patrol Redux that attempts to make it much more like the arcade. But I prefer this version to the arcade, so obviously I don't like Redux quite as much. Maybe I should just spend some more time with it and see. Another one that I've recently gotten, I bought back to these Jungle Hunt levels, I bought a Vector Patrol on the Vectrex, and that's just a fantastic game. It's got a whole kind of attract mode that just goes on forever. And this game really could use a little bit of attract mode. It's got that static screen, you see it at my continue there. And that's it. That's all this game's got. It doesn't even tell you how many points everything's worth. You have to have the manual open for that. Now, I suppose I could actually play Vector Patrol on the Mister, except one, whoop, it's a very recent homebrew, so, you know, people haven't dumped it out of respect there. But the other deal is it's a vector game, and vector games look like butt when they attempt to map to it like an HD TV. They just look terrible. Even with today's high resolution displays, nothing can really make a vector display simulation that looks correct for whatever reason. Now for Mister, in addition to a whole bunch of these little 8-bit DOE controllers, which they're fine except for the D-pad, I suppose. But I also bought this Demon Bite controller adapter so that I can use my big Neo Geo controller on this thing, and I thought I would just love that thing, you know, low latency, 1000 hertz polling and all that. But truth be told, I really don't. It feels weird whenever I try it. Can I get another 500 points? Nope, missed him. Now we are coming up on Q. Here we are at Q. And this is where I am going to lose. This is the extent of my abilities in this game. And I think I've only gotten past this part a couple of times, only to lose very shortly afterwards because the patterns just get very tricky. Ooh. Yes. Of course. Oh geez, they're knocking holes in the ground. Ooh. Whew. Anyway, I think this is about the extent of my abilities on this game. This is a fantastic game, and I do highly recommend it. I recommend Moon Patrol in general, but this is my absolute favorite version of Moon Patrol. At least the hacked 5200 version is. I'm sure the retail version is just fine. And until next time, I guess, Reaper Man out.